So this is some installation assistance tool.
Oh, okay, so when you're installing it, helps press it.
Right, so it fits there, and then it fits there like perfectly, so you don't fuck up the boot.
Nice.
So
it's a nifty little tool.
Hell yeah, and I'm assuming that there's one in this one too.
So these are the Mevotech TTX. A lot of people have been asking about them. They're heavy duty. Look at that.
Burly.
Yeah, we're going to show you guys how to install these. Well, Brian is. Yours truly. Cool. Alright, so just to show you guys what we're trying to fix, you can hear it right there. Alright, the tool we're using for the ball joints, ball joint service kit from O'Reilly's. Or no, Harbor Freight, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, from Harbor Freight. It's pretty beefy. So we got the axle nut. What size is it?
36 millimeter.
36 millimeter. And there you have it.
Just like such.
All right, now to the other side. Boom.
Ooh.
Axle nuts removed.
Now we can put the gun away.
Yep.
Alright, what's up guys? We got a 2005 WK here. Model ran 05 to 2010. We're getting ready to do ball joints and replace our struts. So we got to disassemble the brakes first. And what we got going on, we got a 14 millimeter for the caliper bracket, or the caliper itself. And I'm using a 13/16 because I don't have a 21 for the caliper bracket itself. And then we're gonna take the hub off, undo the tie rod, and undo our ABS line, and yeah, it comes apart pretty good once you get going. So here's what you need. I got a 3/8 ratchet, 1/2 inch ratchet, 14 millimeter gear wrench, a couple extensions, a couple sockets for the hub bolts. I believe it's a 14 or 15 on the back, and that's it.
Sweet.
There you go.
No, you just do your thing. And there's 2 bolts in the back of the caliper.
Yep. You do them. You only loosen them up one at a time, and then you can undo them with your hand after that. Like that. Keep everything underneath the vehicle. Grab my pry bar.
So right now, Brian is just compressing the brake pad with this breaker bar, and then that compressed these cylinders into, so it allows it to release the brakes.
Side note, this is the Power Stop Big Brake Kit. I put this on about 2 years ago. I'm much life is left on this. I drive the piss out of this thing. These are amazing. Worth the money.
I have them too.
Yep. Look at that.
Yep.
2 years.
I wonder what mine are still like chunky too.
That's brand new.
Yep. So now that you have the caliper off and the brakes set aside,
We're gonna take off the caliper bracket.
and then do you have any bungee cords?
Yeah.
Or a bucket?
Yeah.
So depending on your preference, you can use a bungee cord or a bucket to keep this caliper to the side or hung up here, so that you don't break the brake line. Those brake lines are actually pretty fragile. So I tend to use a bucket, and I'll put it like right there, sit it right there, and then put the caliper on top of it, and then all this can just come apart. You can like hang it from that hole back there on the wall. And then it's like out of the way. As long as, yeah. Hell yeah, that's actually a great, look at that, that's the new way to do it. So your brake line has no weight on it. All of the weight's being held there, it's completely out of your way. And if you've done this enough times, you just want to find the best way to get that out of the way.
Yeah, that's definitely my new favorite way.
Yep.
Those are brand new bungees.
That's awesome.
And where did I get that? I got those at Walmart.
Walmart.
Little plastic jar thing, you know.
Right.
It's got a short, medium, and a long in it.
Yep.
Got them for camping, but they obviously come in handy in the shop.
So really.
You can see my strut has been leaking for a while. It's all nasty up there.
Yep. Yeah, this is much needed on both of our
Yeah.
vehicles. Mine's going to continue to be neglected for a little while.
Some people use some kind of pneumatic or electric tool, but I like doing things the old school way. You get to feel what everything's supposed to feel like.
Right. Yeah, I definitely agree with that.
Something almost therapeutic about doing it manually.
Alright, so now that the caliper bracket's off, the rotor will slide right off. So be careful. I've even seen people put one lug nut. I think you showed me that. One lug nut on the...
I'll do that going back together, but
Okay.
coming off, I just leave it.
Yep.
Just sit it off to the side.
There's still...
Okay, then we've got an Allen screw for the ABS line. I'll have to cut my zip ties for
Oh, yeah.
ABS line. What do I need for that? Forget what that is.
I feel like those were like an 18 or 19.
I'm gonna hit everything with some PV blaster
Yep.
because it's looking a little crusty under there.
I'm going to show the camera that.
Just some PV blaster for all your bolts.
That stuff will save your muscles.
Save your muscles, save your parts.
Yeah. Prevent stripping.
You know, and just helps it come off.
Those are a pain. These right here are a pain.
I usually don't have too much trouble.
Well, I mean, if you haven't replaced them,
So
You ever had a
usually what
break
I do is I always add anti-seize to pretty much everything because we use these things off-road.
yeah.
And so, anything you can do to kind of hedge against future
Yeah.
problems, take a couple extra seconds in the beginning, saves you all kinds of time in the end.
Another thing is if you haven't replaced your ABS wires and one of them goes bad and you're going to replace them anyways, you might as well think about replacing the whole hub because it comes with the ABS sensors. And it's like only like 30, 40 bucks more. Like, I think I got my hubs for like, I don't know, like $80 a pop. And I took them on Wheeler Lake, no problems.
Right.
So,
Need all this shit.
a few more tools. Yeah, there's some
We
layers.
got some hammers, we got pliers, dikes, I call them dikes, wire cutters, whatever you want to call them.
Boom.
Alright guys, so we got a T5 for our ABS bolt. It goes into the hub. I'm going to snip my couple of zip ties. Replace those obviously. Our ABS line's free. Move out of the way. In here. Gives you about a 2-inch extension. Just apply light pressure. You never want to try to jerk it. That's how you strip it. Once you break it loose, you can do it by hand. And usually what I do on something like this is I'll keep the bolt with the socket and just set it off to the side because I know I don't need this anywhere else in this process. So that way they're together, out of the way. That slides right out. I got one more.
See, if your car's from a rust date at all, that piece right there would just snap off inside the hub.
Oh yeah. It's the wrong tool, but I'll just get this completely out of the way.
Yeah, you don't want to damage that at all.
So that's tucked up out of the way. Okay. All right, I need to turn the wheel. Turn the wheel.
PV Blaster's doing its work.
Okay, so. That's a 15.
Which bolt are we going for?
We're on the hub bolts now.
Nice.
Got a little wobble extension. Helps you get around the CV boot. We're going to undo our lower ball joint bolt, upper ball joint bolt, tie rod. Knuckle's going to pop right out. Then we'll have access to the ball joint. And then we're going to take the strut out, then replace the strut itself. I put new coils in a couple years ago. I mean, the coils were good at the time, of course. And now they go bad, so now I got to take it apart again. Undo our cotter pin. Now just get in behind it and slowly work it, and then I'll be able to save that. Got a little bend in it, but I'll tap it out.
Yeah, twist them anyway, so.
Great. That's a 13/16. Okay.
I found if you lift the car high enough for these parts, you can actually use an impact on those two.
Right.
And they're pretty beefy nuts, so.
That's a 1-inch.
We can just shove the fork into that ball joint and then smack it down. Yeah, I was gonna say because we're replacing them. If you're not replacing the ball joint here, what we're about to do is a little bit risky because you can break the ball joint boot. But as you can see, we've got these TTX Nevotech ball joints. This is not sponsored, but these are a great product. They're nice and beefy. Yeah, I'm happy to get the opportunity to see them. See those paired with some Jeeper bushings, man? Right. You would have a nice step up from OEM.
Right, we'd have a legitimate motor controller in there.
Yeah, somewhat, yeah.
It's still heavy and limited on travel, but...
Right. So, Brian is going to slide this fork tool right up in there. Give it a couple smacks on the back. And that naturally separates the ball joint. And there you go. You got a knuckle, a hub, and then show them the back of that hub, just where those bolts were. So these bolts, if you ever want to take it off, it's those three.
They're a 15.
Yep, and you can see that in a video in our videos playlist tab. So you can also see us remove this CV axle, which we won't be doing here. Actually, you might want to. It's going to be in your way so much.
Well, we'll pull the strut out.
Right. And then I guess you could lift it up.
Then we'll lift this or push it out of the way.
Okay.
We'll get in there.
Touche.
So, okay.
You don't want to extend it too much, right? The CV axle?
No.
Because then you can like really fuck up your shit.
Yeah, see, I just had to push it back in.
Yeah, that was a little weird.
Yep, that's not the first time I had to do that.
Cool, so now we're going to be working on the infamous clevis bolt. What size was it? Do you know?
I think it's a 15/16.
15/16. Yeah, it's a bit bigger. It's like a 23 or something like that. Like,
that, you know. Here's a little homemade step for getting up in here.
Nice. Oh yeah, the strut bolts.
Now we got to take the strut bolts out.
Not as bad as you'd think.
This just kind of pulls off out of the way. And then, let's see. One bolt here, one bolt there.
Let's point them out.
One bolt here, one bolt here. This is where the gear wrench comes in handy because you can get in here with a gear wrench. I believe it's 10 millimeter.
Nice.
And work that bolt out, and then you take a magnet. Or you can kind of get your hand in there and grab it. And I usually just use the cal as my bolt tray.
Yep.
For anything I'm doing up top.
Cool.
Or the water channel on the hood and the fender.
Yeah.
I'll set stuff in here, but be careful.
This side seems to be a bit easier.
Yeah, that's one bolt.
Yep.
This comes out of the way, and then. Nice, man. That's the first I got. All right, guys. So we had one bolt here, and there's another one right behind the fuse block here. Go straight down. Get you a nice long extension. Peek your head in, stab the bolt, and then very carefully lift off so you don't lose it. Get you one of these nice magnets. Reach right back down. Grab your bolt.
Boom. Yeah, those tools are a lifesaver.
Yeah, and I usually just stick it up there, save it for later. I believe. Should lift off.
Nice. So now that that's removed.
Yep. Now we can get in here and get to our strut bolts. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Boom, boom, boom.
Yep. So, let's see, I think those are 19s. Okay, just get your hand in there. Again, just a little bit of pressure. There, get loose. Nice to have a friend hold your fuse block out of the way.
Yeah. These jobs are a pain alone. you were doing this alone, I'd suggest just putting like a 2x4 right here or something.
Or you could use another bungee and kind of try to pull it out of the way.
Bungee it to the hood or something.
So now that it's all loose, now I can just go in and...
Just watch as the hood doesn't close on you. Not you. I mean, like if you bungeed it.
Oh, yeah, totally.
Strut was like going out.
Yeah.
Alright guys, so that's those 4 bolts. And then we'll get under here and pull out the strut. Alright guys, so we're getting ready to do the clevis bolt.
That is because I had this out recently.
Yeah, I was going to say, as you can see, that wasn't much of a struggle, but this bolt can
Really be a
cause you nightmares, yeah. I mean, some people just cut the bolt right out and just replace it. Yeah, you just got to lift up in your lower control arm and then pull it. You see what's happening? That's what I always tell people. So like, always lift the bottom of it, because then the shock pushes down on that bolt. It's all like these weird forces are happening.
Yep.
Nice. Alright, and that is a shock.
Strut is out. This also has a 1/4-inch strut plate to just for a little more lift.
Yep.
So I don't rub too bad running 32s on a 2.5-inch old man emu. So now we can move that out of the way. I'll bungee it somewhere.
Yep.
Okay. So this.
And we're also a little bit unconventional.
So we've got a jack stand underneath the control arm to give it leverage. And I got my nice impact socket, 3-pound sledge. And she is coming out.
Look at that. Alright, so if you're not jacked like Brian, you're going to have to use one of these tools. Well, we'll probably use this to push it in anyways, but...
Yeah, we're going to use that to push it in.
Yeah, you got to be pretty strong to do that. Look at that. Fastest ball joint removal of all time. Alright, old versus new. I would say that the TTX is like 20-30% heavier than the stock one, so maybe a little beefier. The boot's definitely much stronger. Yep. You definitely don't want to use too much, but that's a good idea. Get any gunk out of
Just
there.
get any gunk out of there, any rust, you know.
Another trick is before you install these is to throw them in the fridge or the freezer overnight.
Yep, or we can
Or this.
get this up.
This is the press. Alright.
Hey guys, we got our clamp set up, and we're gonna do this in 2 steps. This setup is just to kind of get it started, and then we'll readjust to one of the other attachments to finish it out. So we're just doing it.
Alright guys, as you can see, we just kind of messed around with these rings, got them lined up. Alright guys, there you have it. That is a pressed ball joint. Definitely want to give it some good ugga-tuggas because you don't want that to not be pressed. And then, yeah. Boom.
There you go. New ball joint. You can see where the snap ring goes.
Yes.
So here we've got our little goodie bag, the castle nut, the cotter pin, nice new snap ring, and probably the best part of these, look at the size of this grease fitting. This thing is awesome.
That's legit.
Greasable lower ball joints for your WK. $57 a piece on Amazon. Same as the Moog, only better. Okay.
I think the Moogs were like in the 60s.
It was the same price.
Oh, okay.
There you go, the snap ring is in.
It's great.
Get a little... Okay. Now I'm going to wait to put the grease fitting in until later.
So you get the knuckle and stuff?
Yeah. So now we're going to jump to installing the new strut.
Cool.
Put this stuff back.
I was going to say, I wouldn't have your hand there.
Where'd the nut go? There we go.
There's some other ones here, I don't know. So that's, yeah.
What's that?
Rather than dealing with the coil compressors, those things are a pain. That bolt holding the clevis onto the strut is this one right here. It was a 21 from what I believe. Let's double check. 21. And yeah, we basically just used a breaker bar to crack it loose, and then we used that gun right there to twist it off. Slowly wedge it off. Yeah, you could do it. Okay. Alright guys, so you'll see there's a small side up here and a wider side, and what I mean by that is
Spacing on the
yeah, we'll look right here. These right here you'll see are wider here, and these are skinnier here. So that's how you'll decide when you're reinstalling it. Obviously, there's only one way it can really go in.
a little more depth.
Doing a little sandpaper, get rid of the muck in there. Then we're going to slap it back onto the strut.
I'm going to go ahead and just do a little bit of NICs.
NICs.
Put some in the threads. Just a little. That's heavy.
Alright, so strut going in. A little bit dark up there, but basically just try to line up those holes. And then down here is what we really want to see. Push down that lower control arm, gives you more to play.
Okay.
Now you guys are going to slap these bolts that you took off back on. And we'll skip that part just for video's sake, but there you go. They just came through.
You just get one on it, and that'll hold it.
Yeah, and now your strut is good in place. And then you just gotta slap everything back together, which we'll show you. Fork bolt is in. If you guys want to see this in detail too, there's a few videos on our page that go over like all of this as well. Now it's at knuckle time. Alright guys, knuckle time. You want to get that bottom ball joint all lined up like Brian's doing. Knock down the CV so it can all get in. Throw on that king nut on the bottom of the ball joint.
Just to
So
hold
it's
it
not
there.
gonna fall. Yeah. Working. See, that was a good example. Pop in that upper control arm.
Might need the jack.
Oh yeah.
Pick up the...
Alright, so we brace the bottom of the knuckle just to get that upper control arm bolt in. Don't forget the cotter pin.
You can drop the
And now we'll drop.
jack.
Alright. Now you can see that that lower ball joint is popped in. Yeah, more room.
There it is.
Yeah, that looks
There it is.
much better. Much
There
better.
it is.
Yeah.
There it is. Okay.
So let's just show you guys that. So the cotter pin, it gets installed and then it slides. Can you see that? Not really. There you go.
Okay.
And you guys are gonna slap this tie rod in there, slap the caliper back on and all that, and then you guys are good to rock and roll. You want to tighten everything once you put the weight of the vehicle on the ground. So do your torque specs and all that stuff once everything is on the ground. And then yeah,